Chapter 547, Chord of Gods in the Ultimate Realm. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Myriad Chaos Mountain suspended in a large chaotic dark space, like a mountain-shaped planet enveloped by a mass of air. Numerous warriors gathered under the stone heaven board today, including young talents and elder superiors. Among them, some were very ambitious, some were very beautiful, and some had even stepped onto the holy road and become half-saints. However, they all fell into silence now as they looked hard at the stone tablet. Beside Zhang Yuochen's name, the number representing military merits was increasing quickly from 26 million, 27 million. Every time his military merits increased, their eyes twitched involuntarily. Everyone held their breath, nervous about breaking through the ultimate realm of the heaven realm by themselves. They all wondered if Zhang Yuochen would succeed. Throughout history, many peerless conquerors had suffered misfortunes and murders, before finally becoming skeletons in the battlefield of primitive world, when they tried to reach the ultimate realm of the heaven realm. Would Zhang Yuochen be next? Even renowned half-saints and saints from the Saint Academy gathered under the stone tablet. Swoosh! Suddenly, the number beside Zhang Yuochen's name surpassed 30 million. It caused a major sensation in the Myriad Chaos Mountain. More than half of the soldiers from the primitive world cheered. The birth of a conqueror of the ultimate realm of the heaven realm was the pride of mankind. Of course, some people were unhappy due to jealousy or hatred, especially the black market evil warriors who were against the Martial Market Bank. They fell silent. In a floating palace, a war saint from the Ministry of War laughed. "Congratulations to you, Master. Our youngest junior fellow apprentice has broken through to the ultimate realm of the heaven realm and become the second genius in 100 years. It was Sword Saint Xuanji's eldest disciple. He had reached the Saint realm and was a high-level commander-in-chief in the Ministry of War, dominating the Myriad Chaos Mountain." Sword Saint Xuanji smiled heartily. It was extremely gratifying to have such an excellent disciple like Zhang Yuochen. He regarded Zhang Yuochen as his last disciple. He would not have come personally to the Myriad Chaos Mountain for just anyone. "Now that this is over, Lingxiu, I hope you will go to the Xuanwu primitive world and bring back your youngest junior fellow apprentice. Just in case evil masters from the black market try to create difficulties," Sword Saint Xuanji said. "Yes, Master." Demi Saint Lingxiu hurried to the ferry and left for the Xuanwu primitive world. Sword Saint Xuanji looked at the stone tablet heaven board in the distance with a gratified smile on his face. Sacrifice should begin soon. The hundreds of meters high stone tablet suddenly glittered with a harsh white light. Strands of light merged together and formed into a thick light column. It thrust up, striking through the heaven and earth barrier. Boom! The whole space seemed to shake slightly. At the end of the column, the dark space sent out ripples like circles of water. A looming gate of light appeared. At this moment, a mighty and sacred force descended on the Myriad Chaos Mountain, as if the gate to the divine world had opened. The heaven-board vessel spirit stood at the top of the stone tablet and said loudly, "Sacrifice power has opened the gate of the divine world. Gods will descend on the battlefield of the primitive world." The stone tablet seemed to turn into an altar, connecting the divine world with the Myriad Chaos Mountain. Beneath the tablet, monks kneeled devoutly on the ground and looked up to the sky in awe, not daring to have evil thoughts. Such a sacrifice was rarely seen once in 100 years. The last time had been at least 60 years ago. Empress Kaiyao had led 30,000 courtiers and 8,000 barons and killed hundreds of millions of indigenous to worship gods with their blood. They had burned incense to pray for the human warriors in the battlefield of the primitive world. All the spiritual blood of the indigenous Zhang Yuochen had killed rose from up the Xuanwu primitive world, the wood spirit primitive world, and the five elements primitive world. It went through space channels and converged at the stone tablet. It gushed over into the gate of light. Boom! Behind the gate, specks of light fell down and converged into a river that flew toward the Xuanwu primitive world. Zhang Yuochen stood at the bottom of the sea with his eyes closed. He felt the power inside him expanding rapidly. His body was like a universe. Suddenly, the genuine chi inside broke a barrier and turned into a light column, rushing up from his head. The light column passed through the sea and went all the way up to the sky, piercing through the atmosphere of the Xuanwu primitive world. The river of shimmering lights rotated around the light column and condensed into illusory images of oddly shaped gods. Some had 3 heads and 6 arms, some were human-bodied and snake-tailed, some were like Buddha, some were like Taoists. A divine voice could be heard faintly over the Xixuan Sea. Golden light flowed down from the clouds and dropped into the sea. A 5,000 kilometers wide area of the sea became golden. Such a vast anomaly scared the black skeleton flood dragon king. He looked down with sharp eyes and saw God's shadows with strong auras rotating around Zhang Yuochen. Even though the king was comparable to a half-saint, he still shivered in awe and fear when he saw the god's shadows. If he dared to strike against Zhang Yuochen at this time, he would probably be killed in an instant. Is this the Chord of Gods? All the surviving red cloud pythons and soldiers of the primitive world were stunned. CHCH. The shadows were enveloped by bubbles that flew toward Zhang Yuochen and blended with his body. Each time a shadow integrated with his body, Zhang Yuochen became a little stronger. Boom. Once he had integrated with all the gods' shadows, he finally broke through the completion of Heaven Realm and reached a new realm. The ultimate realm of the Heaven Realm. For the Yellow Realm, the Black Realm, and the Earth Realm, the Chord of Gods was realized when one reached the ultimate realm. But for the Heaven Realm, the Chord of Gods had to be realized first before one could reach the ultimate realm. In the sea, wisps of spiritual chi gathered around Zhang Yuochen and formed a vortex of spiritual chi. It shot continuously toward the sacred mark between his eyebrows and entered into his chi pool. As he broke through to the ultimate realm, the god's illusory images disappeared. The black skeleton flood dragon king heaved a deep sigh, feeling that the sacred force that kept him still had dispersed. The king regained his momentum and the expression in his eyes changed. Unexpectedly, you are able to bring about the Chord of Gods. In this case, I must kill you. I'm afraid it's not that easy to kill me, Zhang Yuochen replied. After assimilating all the gods' shadows, Zhang Yuochen had recovered from injuries. He had not only improved his cultivation, but also enhanced his spiritual power and martial soul. You're so unscrupulous. You may have brought about the Chord of Gods, but you are still just a warrior of the Heaven Realm. The king shook his body and lurched toward Zhang Yuochen at lightning speed, hitting him on the head. He threw his palm. The palm and back of his hand grew scales. His 5 fingers extended as sharp as long spears, transforming into huge flood dragon claws. Zhang Yuochen felt that he was full of power, his blood and genuine chi were boiling. He looked up and shouted, "Good." Now that he'd broken through to a new realm, he really wanted to fight. Even though the other party was a half-saint, he grasped the hilt of the ancient abyss sword and held it above his head, releasing his martial soul and mobilizing heaven and earth spiritual chi. Heaven and earth spiritual chi converged and flew into the blade through his palm. After bringing about the 4th Chord of Gods, Zhang Yuochen's martial soul had improved considerably. He was as strong as a monk at the 9th change of the fish dragon realm. Certainly he was able to mobilize the heaven and earth spiritual chi for his own use. The inscriptions of the ancient abyss sword were activated by spiritual chi. The sword chi became denser and denser. Bang! His momentum continued to increase and surge upward. He held his sword with both hands and slashed at the king, colliding with his claw. Even in the water, the sword edge sparked against the flood dragon's scales. Zhang Yuochen's arms hurt. His 5 internal organs and 6 hollow organs shook violently, and he sank down uncontrollably more than 100 meters before he regained his center of gravity and stood still. The king shook slightly. Zhang Yuochen was still at a disadvantage here. He lagged far behind the black skeleton flood dragon king. However, it was much better than before. At least, he did not hurt so badly this time. After all, he had been seriously wounded and almost died from just a casual strike last time. This time, he was already able to fight with the king again. Last time, he hadn't been able to strike back at all. The king noticed a small cut in the center of his palm. How could a man from the heaven realm break through his defense? The king looked cold. Murderous intent crept into his voice. How could your strength improve so fast? If you're afraid, you can run away now. Zhang Yuochen took out the auspicious vase and swallowed a mouthful of wood spirit blood. The blood of wood spirit generated a cool and refreshing potency. It surged into his internal organs, meridians, and blood vessels. Soon, he had recovered from his injuries again. "You're an uppity junior. Do you really think you can fight with me with your poor strength?" The black skeleton Flood Dragon King reached out his palm. Holy light flickered in the center. The cut from the ancient abyss sword vanished. He swooped down and attacked Zhang Yuochen once again. Zhang Yuochen faced the battle without fear.